Hey everyone, it's Dustin, back with another video, and today, we're gonna go into detail on the 5 key aspects of Final Fantasy 15 and convince you, yes you, I see you back there, to give Final Fantasy 15 a fair chance. And without further ado, let's get right into it. So many of you probably just know Final Fantasy 15 as it is. But Final Fantasy 15 actually originated as a completely different game called Final Fantasy Versus 13 for the PlayStation 3, in which the big dog Tetsuya Nomura was set as the original director and character designer. The direction of the game was so set in stone, at the time, the name Versus 13 even made small appearances in Dissidia Duodecim and Theatrhythm Final Fantasy. As of today, July 21st, 2024, I found that there was a trailer for Versus 13 hidden inside of the Trial Edition for Final Fantasy 13, which was included in a special edition release of Final Fantasy VII Advent Children, which was exclusive to Japan. It was even going to be a part of the same universe as the FF13 trilogy and Final Fantasy Type O. After a long 6 years of development time, it was changed to be the next mainline title of the franchise. Nomura was then replaced as director by Hajime Tabata and unfortunately never got to make his dream game. Or did he? The game was then switched over to the 8th gen consoles in Xbox One and PlayStation 4. Due to these changes, the story had a huge rewrite and some scenes and characters were either repurposed or removed altogether. To supplement the game, Square Enix released several other Final Fantasy 15 related projects like an anime, a movie, a book, a mini chibi version of the main game, a VR game, a beat-em-up, and 2 mobile games. Several story-based DLC were released between 2017 and 2019. When the game released, it was pretty well received for its gameplay, graphics, and soundtrack. However, the reception for the story was pretty mixed, but the game went on to sell over 10 million units worldwide, making it one of the best-selling Final Fantasy games of all time. However, fast forward to present day in the year of our Lord 2024, and people generally don't really like the game anymore or don't want to give it another chance. But enough about that. Let's dive right into the gameplay.
What's up, I'm Chris. I'm known as Top Diesel online. I'm a Kingdom Hearts speedrunner, and Dust and I have been friends for about the last 4 to 5 years. We just share a similar interest in gaming, namely Kingdom Hearts, Persona, games of that nature, and we both pretty big fans of Final Fantasy 15, believe it or not. I think the big thing is that no matter how big of mountains you have to climb, you can always rely on other people to help you climb those mountains, no matter what they are or where they're at. I think that's one of the central things that I take away from Final Fantasy 15. The other thing that kind of had a big impact on me is, love the people that are in your life and try and do right by them, because those people are going to be there for you through everything. And those are really the 2 things that really impacted me the first time I played Final Fantasy. Just loved your loved ones.
I'm Brett. I go by Keyblade Brett online. I tend to stream a lot. I'm trying to get some videos started up soon. Maybe one will be out by the time this is out. Hint, hint, wink, wink. But I like to stream a lot of Kingdom Hearts content, and I think that's where my primary focus is really at, is Kingdom Hearts and Final Fantasy and Disney. So Final Fantasy 15 was a game that I played after going through all the classic Final Fantasies from like the PS1 and PS2 era. So I did Final Fantasy 7, I did 8, and then I did 9, I did 10, and then I did 13 as well. I was playing those as they were coming out, but when it came to 15, I was super excited for it. I was like, this is going to be the first real-time Final Fantasy game, and I absolutely loved it on launch. I definitely think the story is the game's strongest suit at the moment, especially now so with all the DLC being out and finished for years at this point. I think the story ends up being a lot better overall than it was even at launch, and I think 15 overall is probably one of the best stories that's come out of Final Fantasy and the entire run.
My name is Nobody Daxian. I am a Kingdom Hearts content creator, a Kingdom Hearts funny man, if you will. I make YouTube content of like gameplay challenges, sometimes some crackpot theories that go way off the rails. and I also stream on Twitch. So, Final Fantasy 15, funny enough, was the first Final Fantasy game I ever played. I had known about Final Fantasy like 7 and 10, like the big ones. I always thought they were interesting, but I never could get into them. But there was just something about seeing a little bit of the gameplay of Final Fantasy 15, maybe it was like the cast of characters or whatever, that was just like, you know what, I'll give it a shot. And ever since then, it's been a slippery slope. Like that was basically like my gateway into the franchise.
My name is Neosai. I am a huge Square Enix fan in general. But I'm also, my favorite franchises of the three, 2 of them are Square Enix franchises. You couldn't tell looking at my channel, but yeah, my favorite franchises are The Legend of Zelda, but also Kingdom Hearts and Final Fantasy. So, as you can imagine, I'm very passionate about them. In fact, my number 1 series is probably Kingdom Hearts, and then number 2 and 3 are tied. So, yeah, huge fan, massive fan, probably unhealthily obsessed with this stuff. But yeah, I make video game retrospectives, and I'm a huge, gigantic nerd. I have a story, actually. So, I've always been a huge Final Fantasy fan, and Final Fantasy 15 was pretty divisive, but there was something I noticed about it. It appealed so much more to casual non-fans than most other Final Fantasy games before it. I had a friend that I've known him since we were little kids, but I don't talk to him all that much anymore. But when Final Fantasy 15 came out, he messaged me out of the blue and was like, hey man, isn't this that series that you liked? And he sent me in a picture of his TV. And he was playing 15. And I was like, are you playing Final Fantasy 15? He's like, yeah man, this is a lot of fun. This looked really cool. I really liked how the characters looked, so I gave it a shot. He played that entire game. This dude played basically nothing but Call of Duty before this. And he played it had such mass appeal, and there was something about the fact that someone saw this game series and they associated it with me because I've always been such an outspoken fan, and it made me really happy because it's a big part of my identity. And the fact that someone that wasn't even into the series I just love seeing people get into the things that I love, especially if it's somebody that you wouldn't expect, because he's the last person I would have expected to get into that kind of thing, you know? And it warmed my heart in a way that's really hard to describe. It's a feeling I'd never felt before, and it made me realize how much I love sharing the things that I love with other people, including the people close to me. And 15 enabled that for me, actually. That was the first time that it ever really happened, and I was like, wow. And that may be one of the things that indirectly led to me pursuing this as a career.
Final Fantasy 15 is an open-world ARPG which stands for Action Role-Playing Game, where you take control of Noctis Lucius Kylum during his journey across Eos, the name of the world we take part in the game. In the original release, you could only play as Noctis in the main game. However, in future updates and DLCs, they made it to where you can play as the other party members by spending AP. But what exactly is AP, and what is it used for? So, similar to Final Fantasy X Sphere Grid, we have an AP grid, but it's broken up into sections and each one gives one of our boys something different. It could be stat increases, the ability to play as other characters in battle, or even unlocking new attacks for your party members. Now, let's touch on the mechanics of the combat. Firstly, the combat for this game is action-based as well as real-time. So if you prefer real-time over turn-based, then this game is probably for you. Noctis has the ability to use every weapon type in the game. From swords to daggers to lances and even shields, he can use it all, while also being able to switch weapons during combat. He also has a cool attack called a Warp Strike where you lock onto the enemy and zip towards them, dealing massive damage at the cost of some of your MP. There are also usually warp points in the battlefield you can warp to recover some HP and MP. If you damage an enemy from behind, there is a chance you can do a cool team-up attack that has a damage multiplier on it. There are also other team-up attacks called Link Strikes, and it happens anytime you and another party member attack the enemy at the same time. You can also parry some attacks in the game. The game will usually tell you there is an attack that can be parried by giving you a button prompt right before the attack connects with Noctis. Another neat thing about this game is, unlike most Final Fantasies, this game has a down but not out system similar to Fortnite. When Noctis runs out of HP, he can either be revived by his friends, or the player can use an item themselves to get Noctis back into the fray. Also, under certain conditions, Noctis can use summons to use powerful attacks on the enemies around him. There are also spells in the game, but they work a bit differently compared to most Final Fantasy games. So there isn't really unlocking spells in this game. You kinda just get the right ingredients to mash into your magic to either upgrade it to a stronger version, or give it various different effects. You also can only have one kind of magic equipped at a time to prevent spamming, because magic can get really broken and is even used for level grinding due to the ability to make killing with magic double your EXP gain. Speaking of EXP, let's talk about how EXP works in this game. So, as you can see, at the end of each battle you're graded based on how you perform in 3 different categories: time, finesse, and offense. Time, of course, is based on how quickly you can finish the fight, finesse being more about being as flashy as possible, and offense being about doing lots of damage. How much EXP you gain is not only based on the enemy you defeat, but also your grade for the fight. After you acquire your EXP, you must spend it at camps instead of just leveling up when you get enough experience. Now, while you may not think that it is a good idea, just wait. It gets better. So when you have a lump sum of EXP, you can either take it to a camp to get just the amount of experience it says you have, or you can take it to fancier places and you can get up to a 3 times experience multiplier to get way more than what you actually have. Knowing these spots is key to leveling up efficiently while playing the game. There will be an indicator on your screen telling you how much of a multiplier you will receive, but I won't get into these spots here because it can get into spoiler territory. And now, I'll share a brief synopsis of the story for the game.
My favorite part of the story is the very end, where you're given an option for something that somewhat impacts the ending of the game. Not in like a major story way, but just, you'll see when you get there.
I think Final Fantasy 15 does a really, really cool thing. It was really divisive, but the game opens. Literally the first thing you see is a flash forward to a fight. Just, you're in the thick of a fight with somebody, I won't say who. You're in the thick of a fight. The characters look different than you'd think they look because there's a flash forward. It sets up this mystery of why did it open that way? Why are we seeing this? Because then it goes straight back to the past after that. And this is like literally the first thing you see. This is before you get the intro segment. This is before you get the title, anything. Just immediately right into the thick of a battle. And it introduces you to every character simultaneously. It immediately shows you how close they are because they all huddle up together. It's such a cool sequence, and it was a great way to set the tone of the game, to tell you that while the beginning of the game is pretty goofy, it's going to get serious eventually. And I think that might be why they did that. That and because the game has kind of a slow start. But I don't know, there was just something so cool about that. And I didn't expect it because I'd been following all of the promotional stuff and everything for the game. I had no idea there was going to be a flash forward like that. So that moment was just insanely cool.
Now to give a brief description of the story for those who may not know anything about the game. Basically, without getting into spoilers, the game follows a young prince in Noctis, Lucis, Kylum, and his 3 best friends on the road to his city by the name of Altissia, so Noctis can have his longtime best friend's hand in marriage. But during this trip, they soon find out their kingdom has been invaded by the Niflheim Empire, and everyone, including our boy band of heroes, have been announced as dead. Soon after finding this out, our heroes go in search of new power to aid them in reclaiming the throne. Next up is the exploration.
The combat at launch, I did not read a whole bunch of the online discourse and the complaints and stuff. I played the Platinum demo, and I played at launch, and I feel like, I can't remember specifics, it's been a few years. I feel like the combat at launch was better than it was in the Platinum demo. It felt a lot less stiff, and I really didn't have many issues with the combat. On the base game, I played through the entire thing with no real complaints about that specific part of the game. My complaints were about things that I believe were also fixed, or at least improved, in the later revision releases. But, I mean, I never really had any issues. I mean, it flowed smoothly, it was enjoyable, it felt flashy, which I know there's style and substance and everything, but I didn't really have any super big issues, especially since this is the first almost action-based Final Fantasy game, at least mainline. I mean, I enjoyed it. I didn't have any huge major complaints about it. I mean, I'm sure on a technical level, there were probably some rough around the edges issues, but my personal experience is that it felt good, and I mean, I wasn't trying to read online discourse or discourse from people that dislike the game. I wanted to form my own opinion, which I try to do with any game. So with 15 specifically, at launch, it wasn't that bad, and I've heard that it's only gotten better since then.
So, I think, as much as I do like 15, I think the combat is probably the game's weakest point for me. And I think now it's a lot better than it was. I do like the fact that you are able to swap characters. It's not like in the field, but in battle you can swap around between characters now, which I think is great. And it was something that I was requesting like fairly early on, so I was extremely excited when that came about. But I think as a game today, like, it's not something I'm going for the gameplay. If I want to play it, I'm playing it for the story.
The base game felt very repetitive. I mean, incredibly repetitive. It felt like that there wasn't a whole lot of diversity in the gameplay, and even in the Royal Edition, I feel like the story is phenomenal and the combat is 6 out of 10. I think that what Square's done with Final Fantasy 16 really expanded on what I think they were looking for in Final Fantasy 15, but it just feels like you warp strike in, warp strike out, warp strike in, warp strike out, hit a reset point, get your MP back, warp strike in, warp strike out, and that feels like that's the optimal way to do the combat, and it's just not very rewarding. And yeah, that's just kind of my perspective on combat. I think that if you choose to have fun with it, you can have a lot of fun with weapon switching, using multiple weapons in one fight, and later when you get in the game, you get just a story weapon that's just omega busted. It's crazy how good it is, and combat probably feels like a 6 out of 10 with a 10 out of 10 story for Final Fantasy 15.
So in Final Fantasy 15, there are several different ways to get around the world. Of course, you can just do it all on foot, but you can also just drive there, and once you've been to that area, you can just fast travel at any time, or if you'd like to take the scenic route, you can just ask Ignis to drive. Once you get far enough into the game, you can unlock the ability to use chocobos, which is definitely faster than walking, but not as fast as the car. But raising your chocobo doesn't come without its benefits. When used enough, the chocobo can actually join you in battle, which I thought was pretty neat. So in Final Fantasy 15, EOS is a huge open world with plenty of cool extras to find and plenty of side content. Actually, something really neat about the side content in this game is they brought back a fan favorite mechanic from Final Fantasy 12 in the hunt board, where as you progress through the story you unlock more monsters to hunt and progress your hunter's rank. There are also crossover quests you can do in the game that crosses Final Fantasy 15 over with Final Fantasy 14 and Mistwalker's Terra World to unlock some cool items from those respective games. Now before we go into the different kinds of collectibles, each character also has a special hobby as well. With Noctis, you can go around to different fishing spots to get fish for even more recipes. Ignis is good at cooking, more on that later. Prompto enjoys taking pictures during combat, and you can also take him to different photo ops around the map to make even more amazing pictures. And Gladio is good at survival? This pretty much means as you level his survival skill, he is more likely to call out secret dungeons and treasure for you to pick up. To go into a bit more detail about Ignis, across the map there are several different kinds of goodies to pick up, such as ingredients for Ignis to use to make yummy foods with to give the party different kinds of buffs. You can also get items to combine with your magic to upgrade it, or ore to pick up and give Cindy to change the color of the regalia. There are also tombs that you can find to unlock special weapons for Noctis that each come with a special effect when equipped to him. Also, some dungeons you find, you'll notice that there are strange doors that you cannot open when you find them. Wonder what those do? There are also plenty of other secrets you may find while exploring the map, so feel free to give it a look.
I feel like that's a pretty unique question, because, like, how do you convince anyone to get into a video game? But I think with Final Fantasy 15 specifically, the core cast of characters have a very, very unique bond that is already pre-established, but you see reaffirmed and then you see that bond challenged over and over again. And even though it is sort of about the bond between these characters, it doesn't end with, like, the power of friendship. You know what I mean? Which is kind of odd considering that it is a game focused on the relationship between these characters. So, it's also just a really good dynamic between all of them. One of the things I really like about the story of this game is that these characters, you see, are initially bonded together through, like, a little bit of brothership, right? But the other three characters, aside from Noctis, they have a job to play, and that's to protect Noctis. They have to reassume the mantle of their job positions, and they have to, like, get it together, and Noctis, you know, has to deal with that. He has to figure out, like, he has to rise to his own job, and he struggles with that. And it's, like, the job of his friends to show him what to do and to, like, build him up and be like, hey, yo, you have a job to do, like, get it together. And, like, that's a classic example with Gladio, because he's a hard ass the entire game. So you start to see that struggle between, like, how do you treat him as a friend? Like, do you treat them as friends? Do you treat them as, you know, your civil servants, or your, you know, the people protecting you? Like, what role do you have to play in a specific situation, given, like, everything that's going on in the story? So seeing that challenged is very interesting, and I think it's something that the game does really well. You can find me on YouTube, you can find me on Twitch. Nobody Daxian. You can also follow me on Twitter. I'm trying to build that one up. I don't know when this video comes out, but probably by the time it does, I'll have a new Kingdom Hearts Theory video posted on the Black Box. And then I have another video that's currently in the works. That's a gameplay challenge with 3 different games randomized into one. So be on the lookout for that.
If you enjoy having a story that has been crafted to elicit emotion out of you, and that's, again, something you enjoy, by all means, you need to play this game. It's just from a narrative perspective. Even if you play the game on easy, play the game and have fun with the combat, but enjoy the story that they've put forward and really try and pay attention to everything that's going on around you in that story, and I promise you won't be disappointed with what became of that game. Shout out to all of the Final Fantasy gamers out there. Shout outs to all of the Kingdom Hearts gamers out there. Shout outs to Dustin, most importantly. He's doing great work on this video. I see all of the work he puts in every day. And yeah, he's really passionate about all of the videos he makes. And so I hope that you all can become as passionate about them as he is.
If you're looking for one of the best stories in all of gaming, I highly recommend that you check out Final Fantasy 15. You can get it on PlayStation, you can get it on Xbox, you can get it on Steam, which is probably one of the better spots to try it out, in all honesty, because you can play around with workshop mods. I mean, if you want to be a weirdo, go ahead and try it out on the Switch Pocket Edition. Plays more like a traditional Final Fantasy turn-based game there, as far as I'm aware. But I think anybody who's trying to get into Final Fantasy should give it a shot. Follow me over on my Twitch. It's twitch.tv/KeybladeBrett. I stream a lot of Kingdom Hearts, a lot of Disney content, a lot of Final Fantasy content. I'm also working on speedruns of an obscure Disney game called Disney Golf. I'm trying to get #1 on the leaderboard. So if you'd like to come watch and support me as I do that, I tend to go live pretty much every single day.
Ignore the things that people have said criticizing it online. This game is a game that suffers from, I hate to say it, but like bandwagon syndrome. A lot of the complaints that people had are actually complaints that are being spouted from a lot of people that didn't even play the game. They're kind of just regurgitating complaints that they heard from other people. And that led to the game getting kind of a bad reputation. Some of the complaints are valid. Some of the story issues, they should not have relegated some of the exposition to a movie. However, that movie, the stuff that happened in that movie was honestly stuff that we didn't need to see. It was cool to see it, but we didn't have to see that stuff. The game outright tells you what happened in that movie. You're told explicitly what happened. You don't really miss that. In fact, the fact that the stuff that's happening without, how do I say this without spoiling it? I think that from the perspective of Noctis, some of the stuff that happens, it's actually more impactful that he wasn't there for it. The fact that he finds out that it happened when he was away, and he's helpless to do anything about it, that makes it hit way harder, rather than if he was in the thick of it. It would have been cool if he was in the thick of it. It would have been cool if we got like a first-person perspective of all that stuff, but that's one of the biggest complaints I see. You don't have to see a whole anime, read 7 novels, and watch a movie to get the full story of 15. And I'd say that's especially true after Royal Edition, where some of the stuff was expanded and fixed and the pacing issues were fixed. It's a great game. It's a solid game today, especially with the DLC episodes. It is incredibly charming. Honestly, I'm going to refer to that meme where Final Fantasy 15 is a great game if you don't have somebody in your ear whining about it all the time, because it really is. Like, throw away your preconceived notions and go in just to have a good time, right? And if you have criticisms, that's fine. But try to see, the forest for the trees here, because just because you might have some minor nitpicks with the game, that doesn't mean the overall game is bad. I have plenty of games that are some of my favorites of all time that I have nitpicks about, but I still love the games. And 15's up there with that list of games that I have. Like, I have complaints about it, I have criticisms about it, but I'm never going to say it's a bad game, because it's not. And I think it's a bad faith argument to say it's a bad game based on some small criticisms. Again, the game has some issues, but the shining bright spots, the fun stuff, the great stuff, the charming stuff, outweighs all of that by a mile. It is insanely fun. It's insanely charming. It has a fun story. It's lighthearted and heartbreaking, bittersweet. It's a whole journey, and it's definitely worth giving a shot. As of this video you're working on right now, I'm working on part 2 of my big old Kingdom Hearts retrospective. It's a multi-hour retrospective series, and if you're liking this video, you might hear the guy behind this video make some appearances in part 2 and 3, so keep an eye out for that.
Now, while the main game of Final Fantasy XV features Noctis, there are also several DLC stories that highlight different characters and provide more context to their stories, while also filling in holes you may have while playing the main story. However, one of these are not included in the Royal Edition due to coming out after it released. These are really awesome and provide some nice insight and heavily supplement the main story, and believe it or not, this is a lot of people's first experience playing as the other party members of the game. With the release of the PC version of the game, that means it also has native mod support due to the Steam Workshop. This allows all sorts of cool things like model swaps, new weapons, or even new outfits for some of the characters. Now that about does it for my rant about why you should play Final Fantasy XV. Did it work? Let me know in the comments, and a special thank you to those I had in the video. I'll be leaving their socials down in the description below, and thank you so much for watching this video. Have a wonderful day.